A very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the class today. So we are discussing your chapter 9, TDS, TCS Advanced Tax. This is C. Bhatia. I hope all of you have revised all the concepts up till now. So before we proceed and while others settle in, let's devote 5 minutes to all your queries if you might have. And if you remember the homework, where I will ask you about what all are the sections on which TDS is deducted on payment, though Akashni has already given me an answer, great. And in which sections individuals also have to deduct TDS. So let's see. Okay, so I got few queries. Page 9.21. Okay. Okay. So Akashni has a query, ma'am. How is the interest calculated on the third part? So let's understand. We have to tell the TDS implications under section 194A in the cases mentioned here under. And the third part may, on 1st October 2021, Mr. Rajesh started a 6 months recurring deposit of rupees 2 lakhs per month at 8% per annum with PQR Bank. The recurring deposit matures on 31st March 2022. Now, what is recurring deposit? Anyone knows what is recurring deposit and what is fixed deposit? So recurring deposit is something basically in which you deposit every month. You recur the amount every month. And then the TDS is calculated on the accumulated balance. Now here, in this case, you will not do in this case, you will not do it at 2 lakh ka 8% because he is depositing 2 lakh 6 months every month. Per month he's depositing at the rate of 8%. So let's see how to calculate the interest here. He has started on which date? He started in the month of October. Okay. And the rate of interest is 8%, right? Yeah. So everyone, please listen here. He is making 2 lakh every month. 2 lakh अक्टूबर में डाला, ठीक है, फिर 2 लाख नेक्स्ट मंथ डाला, टोटल बैलेंस 4 लाख, फिर 2 लाख नेक्स्ट मंथ, फिर 2 लाख नेक्स्ट मंथ करके, सो एवरी मंथ द बैलेंस इज आल्सो इंक्रीजिंग, ठीक है. नाउ फॉर द मंथ ऑफ अक्टूबर द बैलेंस वाज 2 लाख, राइट. उस पे इंटरेस्ट लगाया फॉर द 8% फॉर 1 मंथ, you'll get 1,333. Then 4 lakh pay 8% for 1 month. Then 6 lakhs pay 8% for 1 month. 8 lakhs pay 8% for 1 month, 10 lakhs pay 10% per month, and 12 lakh pay. The total you will see would come as 28,000, which is lower than the limit of 40. So hence no TDS is applicable. Akash, is it clear? Very good. Many of you gave the correct answer. Now is it clear? So your, I think income tax will get over by the end of this month, probably before the end of this month. So you have ample time to revise for the entire classes. I need to check with the institute when they're keeping the batch. Oh, okay. किसी को और कोई डाउट है अभी तक? I hope you're preparing that chart. Why I'm saying you to prepare that chart? Because you will self-revise it and you will self-remember those sections if you will do it by your own hand. Do not underestimate the power of self-study. I'm saying it again and again. You might get best of the teachers to explain you. You might take best of the tuitions, multiple tuitions. But till the time you do not have your own will, your own self-study, your own self-dedicated time, things will not be up to the mark. Okay, great. So shall we begin with our today's class? Okay. So today our section which we are going to do is 194P, first section. So now there are hardly 5 sections left. One is 194P, another is 194O, Q, PQ, yeah. And then there is your 3 section which I had specifically postponed to this class. Okay, so we'll do this. Then in the first half we'll do more provisions, miscellaneous provisions in relation to TDS. Second half would be dedicated to advanced tax. Now you'll ask, ma'am, TCS when? However, first we'll do these 2. TCS का intro part is already there. We can do it in the next class also. Okay. So now focusing on our today's class. अगर अभी कोई query रह जाता है, we will take it at the end of the class. Now 194P is a very new section. It was introduced in 1st April 21. Say this section is purely to give some people with learn it better. Senior citizens के लिए there is a form which will see where they can where they can give a declaration, and if no tax is applicable, you'll see if on their income no taxes are coming due. There was one thing, if on their income no tax was coming due, then no TDS was deducted through that declaration. That was one thing which we'll see. But there were certain circumstances, because when we talk about senior citizens, we assume that they have very limited income. One can be FD interest, right? Another common thing which they may have is pension. So this particular section is for senior citizen, but here the term, if you see, is not just senior citizen. This is the term which is written here is specified senior citizen. Specified senior citizen. Now, what is specified? That we have to see. So this particular section is applicable on payment made to senior citizens by a bank. So who would be the deductor in this case? Bank. Who would be the payee? Specified senior citizen. But ma'am, who is a specified senior citizen? Specified senior citizen means they have given a criteria. We have senior citizen generally resident 60 plus years, super senior citizen resident 80 or plus years, right? But here specified senior citizen means a senior citizen who is of 75 years of age, 75 or plus, and at the same time has a pension income. He's retired basically and is having a pension income, and at the same time he's having only interest income. Okay. So specified senior का three condition is: 1, he's of 75 years or more; 2, he's having pension income. 3, he's having interest income from bank. Now, one more condition here is that this section is applicable only when in the bank account in which the pension is received, in the bank account in which the pension is received, the interest is also earned with the same bank. So suppose I have a pension, I am a 75 plus year old person, I have a pension and that comes in my ICICI bank. So the interest also should be coming from ICICI Bank. Now, interest can be from the savings, from their FD, from their reckoning, but the payer has to be ICICI Bank for the interest. So, 2 incomes, one is pension and interest. इसके अलावा the senior citizen should not have any income. Number 1. Number 2, both the income, the pension is credited in the same bank and the interest is coming from the same bank. Obviously, the pension is paid by my employer, previous employer, the main employer, and this is my salary income. But the bank account in which this is credited and the interest from which I'm generating, the bank should be the same. Okay? Then only I'll fall under the category of specified senior citizen. If any of this condition is not met, I am not specified senior citizen, then this section would not be applicable. So suppose if I am getting pension in different bank and interest from different bank, section 194P not applicable for interest deduction for the bank, TDS deduction for the bank. If I have pension, interest, but I have some other income also, then this section would not be applicable. Okay? ये तो हो गया what is specified senior citizen. So who will deduct the TDS? The bank will deduct the TDS. What is bank paying? They are paying the interest. They are not paying the pension. They are paying the interest, right? Pension is just a condition which you have to see because it is getting credited in the same bank account or not. Correct? So bank is paying what? Interest. The TDS would be deducted on interest. What other things which we see when we talk about it, TDS is the rate of deduction, right? So you will ask now what would be the rate of deduction? Now, interestingly, the rate of deduction is a slab rate. And slab rate cases, think yourself as bank. You have specified senior citizen. Okay, why slab rate is applicable? Because when senior citizen are having only 2 income and both are reflected in your statements, you have the right to access those statements, right? So you can deduct the TDS as slab rate. That's why the condition to have both the bank same in which the account pension is getting credited and the bank which is generating interest to be the same so that they can see if there's no other income and they can see how much pension is getting credited. Number 1. Number 2, how will they calculate the slab rate? Simply, they will take a form from the senior citizen. They will take a form from senior citizen. They will ask for the details of pension. They will ask for, they have the interest details. They will ask for deductions if you have any. And then they will calculate your mini computation just like salary में करते हैं, ठीक है? Mini computation से they will calculate your tax. They will reduce the TDS on pension if deducted under section 192. You know, pension is a salary. We all agree pension is taxable under the head salary. And then they will compute the tax liability and that they will reduce it from your interest. So instead of interest pay where 194A is applicable, that would not be applicable if 194P is getting applicable. If 194P is not getting applicable, then 194A would be applicable. Now, benefit क्या होगा? See, उसमें 10% deduct होता था, right? Here you will get a benefit of slab rates. You'll get a benefit of 87A. You'll get a benefit of 5%. You'll get a benefit on a progressive rate. So yes, TDS would be deducted comparatively lower. TDS would be deducted comparatively lower. So how will they compute it? Is this. There is no threshold limit, but the computation is this. Don't worry, we are doing one question on it. And there's one more benefit of this section. If the bank has deducted the TDS and the senior citizen does not have any other income, and the senior citizen does not have any other income, obviously then only they'll deduct the TDS under this section, then senior citizen is not required to file the return. He is not required to file the return. That means he can sit back free of compliances, just relax, कुछ करने का नहीं है, income earn करने का है, that's it. So no sardardi of filing the return also, provided obviously you have only these two income. So let's do one question. Mr. Sharma, a resident aged 77 years, gets pension of 52,000 per month from UP state government. Okay, the same is credited to his saving accounts in SBI Lucknow branch. In addition, he gets interest at the rate of 8% on fixed deposit of 20 lakhs with the said bank. Okay. Out of the deposit of 20 lakhs, 2 lakhs represent 5 years term deposit made by him on 1st April 2001. Okay. Interest on saving bank credited to his SBI saving account for the previous year is 9,500. For the above facts, compute the total income and tax liability of Mr. Sharma for assessment year 22-23, assuming that he is not opted for section 115 TSC. Now, by the first part, there is no TDS the question, right? इसमें please TDS मत घुसा देना. If the question is not asking first में TDS, do not give the answer of TDS in first. In your exam also, just you have to compute total income and tax. I'm saying again and again, whenever a question asks something, please provide that only. All other things in your working note. So compute कैसे करेंगे? Simple. 52,000 into 12 pension. Uncommuted pension comes and is taxable even if received from government, right? Standard deduction reduce करा 50,000 का. 5,74,000 is my salary income. Income from other sources 20 lakhs, pay 8%. 1,60,000 interest on saving bank 9,500. Total comes to this plus this 1,69,500. Then deductions. अब deductions में 80 TTA and 80C. How 80C? This line. Out of the deposit of 20 lakhs, 2 lakh represent 5 years term deposit made by him on 1st April 2021. But maximum up to 1,50,000. Sorry, not 80 TTA, then 80 TTB. Now, interest is how much? Interest is 9,500 plus 160, but maximum deduction allowed is 50. So, 2 lakh का deduction हो गया under chapter 6A. Gross total income comes to 5,43,500. Correct? Now, let's calculate the tax. 87A obviously would not be applicable. So the tax calculation comes to 19,448, which you rounded off to 19,450. Simple. अभी तक TDS नहीं पूछा था. Now let's see what the other part is saying. The other part is saying what would be the amount of tax deductible at source by SBI, assuming the same is a specified bank. Is Mr. Sharma required to file his return of income for assessment year 22-23? If tax deductible at source has been fully deducted, the answer is SBI will deduct how much TDS? SBI will deduct the TDS of 19,450. Provided on this 19,450, if there is any TDS under section 192, which UP government has deducted, that would be reduced, and the remaining tax would be deducted by the SBI. And since he is deducting tax under section 194P, Mr. Sharma is not required to file any return of income. Clear? So you will see, suppose Okay. Sorry. So I'm just assuming कि the pension wala people have some, even if deducted 5,000 as TDS, that would come to 14,450, right? Which the bank will deduct. So had it been section 194A, how much TDS would have been deducted? 160, 10%, right? 16,000. But here it is getting reduced by a certain limit and having more disposable income. Number one, in the hands of senior citizen. Number two, no need to file the return. And it may also happen that the pension that the UP government has deducted the entire TDS, because you can give your income, you can give your information from other sources, right? So they may have deducted the entire TDS, so then the bank will not deduct any TDS. Next, third part of the question says, what would be your answer if for the point two be different if fixed deposit of 20 lakhs was with Canara Bank instead of SBI? Yes, obviously then 194P would not be applicable and Canara Bank would have deducted 20 lakhs per TDS. Sorry, not 1,60,000 per TDS under section 194A. And you will write why, because the interest was more than 50,000. You will tell why section 194P is not applicable. Then you will tell what would be the treatment of the interest, and that's how you will close your answer. कोई डाउट 194P में थोड़ा सा टिपिकल सेक्शन है, बट इंटरेस्टिंग सेक्शन है. Akashni, the amount shown as tax liability would be deducted as TDS after considering section 192 में उन्होंने कोई और TDS काटा हो. Pension pay, any TDS is deducted after considering that they will deduct the TDS. And it may also happen because pension के time पे, salary के time पे, you tell your income from other sources to the salary person, as in to your employer. So it may happen that they might have deducted the entire TDS. So then in that case, bank will not be required to deduct any TDS. Also, this section is beneficial in other ways round also. So suppose you are having huge interest as in you are having an interest of say 5 lakhs you're earning, you're a senior citizen interest of having 5 lakhs. Had it been a case of 194A, listen carefully, only 10% TDS would have been deducted. Suppose you have 194A applicable to you, only 10% TDS would have been deducted, correct? What about these other amounts? So suppose you're having an FD interest of say 8 lakhs. You 10% of 194A would have been applicable, right? How will you be disposing of your other tax liability? Either by depositing advance tax or by paying self-assessment tax, and then you have to file your return. But if under this section, if they're deducting the TDS, then you don't have to worry about anything. They'll deduct the TDS on the entire amount taxable to you, and then they will all obviously they are filing the TDS return. Then you do not have to file your income tax return. So Sumesh, TDS return is always filed by the deductor. So when the TDS return is filed by the deductor, the deductee here, who is the senior citizen, does not have to require to file his income tax return. Moving on to next section. This section is also a new baby, as in it was introduced with effect from, it was applicable with effect from 1st July 2021. So practically just 1 year old section, section 194Q. This is another attempt of income tax department or the CBDT or the income tax authority or the government to bring or to know the source of transactions where the volume is high, where the volume of amount involved is high. So this section talks about TDS on purchase of goods more than 50 lakhs in a previous year, or you can say in a financial year. So now, who is our deductee? Who, in case of goods, what happened? Buyer makes a payment to seller. Buyer makes a payment to seller, right? So who is the source? He purchases goods and he makes the payment, right? So who would be the source? Buyer or seller? Buyer is the source. Who will deduct the TDS? Buyer will deduct the TDS. When they will deduct the TDS? When the purchase of good from a single party in a single financial year is more than 50 lakhs. Is more than 50 lakhs. Suppose I have purchased 80 lakhs of good from a person. So I have purchased 80 lakhs good from a person, then this section would be applicable. So basically they are saying that the government want to know the information where you are trading in high volume from a person. So that's why they came up with the applicability of section 194Q. On who this section is applicable? This section is applicable on the purchase of goods for more than 50 lakhs. On the purchase of goods from more than 50 lakhs. The seller has to be a resident seller. Also, there is one more condition that this section would only be applicable to a buyer, who has turnover of more than 10 crores. In the preceding financial year, then only this section would be applicable for the buyer to deduct TDS under 194Q. So, if you're talking about previous year 21-22 for you, you have to see the turnover of previous year 2021, and if it is more than 10 crore, then only you will apply 194Q. Number one. Number two, the purchase of goods from a single party has to be more than 50 lakhs. Now, the suspense part. What is the TDS rate? The TDS rate is 0.1%. 0.1%, bus, yes, 0.1% on the sale proceeds exceeding 50 lakhs. जैसे हमारा 194N में exceeding पे TDS was deducted, here also on the exceeding amount. So the sale of goods is 80 lakhs, so the TDS will be deducted on 30 lakhs का 0.1% only. Okay, so on the exceeding amount we need to deduct the TDS, not on the entire 80 lakhs. When the TDS has to be deducted, the TDS has to be deducted at the time of credit or due, whichever is earlier. Clear? So, ma'am, you will say, ma'am, whether a purchase return happens, then what we will do? No worries. If you have made a purchase, you have deducted the TDS while making the payment, or otherwise, later the purchase return happens or a credit note comes, then you don't have to worry. The TDS has been deducted, is deducted. There would be no reversal of such TDS. Okay. Now you will ask, ma'am, what if 194O is applicable? E-commerce wala. So if e-commerce wala section is applicable, then 194Q will not be applicable. 194Q will only be applicable if the other sections are not applicable. There is exception to it, section 206C1H. I'll do it later because I really want you not to be overburdened with the knowledge. Step by step we'll do it. And students, there are definitely, not can, there are many more clarifications and many more circulars which are treated at your final level. So be what we are teaching, I would request you to stick to that knowledge, number one, because it's a process. आप धीरे धीरे समझोगे, right? We do not want to overburden with so many things. Now you will ask, ma'am, first year of operation hai, how will I get to know whether the TDS has to be deducted? I am a buyer. Okay, first year of operation hai, and I have purchased goods worth rupees 80 lakhs. Do I need to deduct the TDS? So if it's first year of operation, as in you are just a newly started business, there's no TDS requirement under section 194Q. Irrespective of whatever amount you purchase, there would be no requirement. So if to sum up simply, what is section 194Q? A buyer who has a turnover of more than 10 crores in the preceding financial year will deduct TDS in case he purchases goods from a single seller for an amount of more than 50 lakh. The TDS would be deducted at the rate of 0.1% on the sum exceeding 50 lakhs. Okay. Abhi, this much, please do not read 0.4 iska, you will get confused. We will take that, but later. Any doubt in 194P and 194Q? किसी को कोई डाउट अभी तक? Okay. Bar repetitively I'm saying there are handful of 10, 11 sections which you have to remember no matter what. जहाँ से question आने का संभावना is the most, but yes, on a single particular day, if the paper comes hard, any section can come up, but practically some 10, 11 sections which we are discussing on and on, which I'm saying these are very important, are actually very important. So LYB has asked a very valid question. Now 50 lakhs is the invoice value or the taxable value. So 50 lakhs is the value of excluding GST because GST में आप TDS पैसे भी नहीं काटते, right? So 50 lakhs is the amount excluding GST which you have to consider. And it is not 50 lakhs as one time invoice amount to be. Suppose I am making 10 lakhs का purchase every month, okay, from a particular buyer. मेरा fixed है particular from a particular seller. Mine is fixed that from this particular supplier I'll purchase raw material of 10 lakhs every month. So the moment it crosses, so from the 6th month I'll be deducting, which is after the 5 months when 50 lakhs has already crossed, then I'll be deducting from 6 months extra purchase jitna hoga over and above 50 lakhs pay 0.1%. So 10 lakh pay every month I will be deducting 0.1%, which is what, 1,000, that's it. See, government को पता है TDS से बहुत सारा information मिलता है. It's not that they're only getting the tax. They're obviously getting the tax, but they're also getting the information of the income generated in the system. अच्छा, now एक चीज remember करना. I think this was taken before also. Okay. There is deductor and there is deductee. you always have to think separately from the point of view of deductor and deducting. Tax deduct करने के लिए a person needs to obtain a TAN number which is called tax deduction and collection account number. Okay, and deductor collects PAN from the deductee. Deductor collects the PAN number of the deductee. क्यों? How will the government know कि deductor ने किसका पैसा काटा है? How will the government know कि deductor ने किसका पैसा काटा or for whom the tax is deducted? Through this PAN. It's a universal ID for income tax purpose. Okay, so it's an ID for the income tax purpose. Now, if suppose I've deducted your TDS, so I will tell it through return. I'll file a TDS return. I'll file a TDS return where there would be a detail of the entire statement with the amount which I have given to a person, the TDS which I have been deducted, and obviously for whom the TDS is deducted. By writing Mr. Sumesh, the government will not get to know, right? So I have to write the PAN number. So PAN number is very important, number one. Obviously, through PAN number, the government will also know that this person has generated so and so income. So when he files his income tax return, I have to see whether he has shown that income or not. Okay, this is how they have totally generated the system or developed the system. Okay, PAN is the reflect order. The income has to be reflected in the income tax return of the deductee. Correct. But back to square one. What is this? Why the deductor needs TAN? Because every person who has a PAN is not a person who is deducting TDS, right? Every person who has a PAN is not a person who is deducting TDS. For deducting TDS, you have to be an eligible deductor to get. And how will you deduct the TDS? When you have a TAN. So the government will know that इस TAN person ने इतना TDS काटा है for so and so person, and for so and so person को कैसे reflect करेंगे? TAN के थ्रू. ठीक है, इस TAN person ने so and so TDS काटा है, and these are the deductions. Secondly, in PAN का income tax portal में TAN का there is traces portal that is managed by the third party. So hence there should be a separate set of information for all the deductions. That's why TAN is required. Now, number two, for all the sections up till now, the deductor requires the TAN. When he will require the TAN, when he knows that the TDS has to be deducted, he has to immediately apply for a TAN number. And very soon, nowadays, I think within 1 week, you get a TAN number. Okay? Clear? But there are 3 sections in which the TDS is required to be deducted, but there is no need of TAN. No need of TAN means you do not have to apply for a TAN number separately. Number one, there is no need to file all these quarterly compliances of deducting the TDS, filing the return. Remember I told you why they exclude individual and HUF of lower turnover? Because there are so many compliances all together in TDS, like deducting, depositing, filing, and issuing certificate, and so thing. So that's why they came up with 3 sections where they wanted information, but they did not want to overburden the person with compliances. Okay? They did not want to overburden the person with compliances. That's what they came up with 3 very unique sections where they wanted that the TDS should be deducted. The government wanted the TDS should be deducted. So they came up with 3 sections where there is no need to deduct TAN. There is no need to file the return. You just have to file one form. 10 minutes लगता है वो form file करने में. उसी में you have to make the payment. उसी में you have to give the details. And that is assumed that you have given all the information to the government by filing a return. Ma'am, can you please explain? First, we'll do the section and then I'll come to more detailing part. But this is just to create a boundary of thought to understand these sections. We will actually turnover is for the entire year because you adjust. Ismail, I'll give you an example. Ismail, I'll come to that example. Just give me a moment, okay? The pehla section, which is the most common section, which was first introduced under this category, was section 194 IA. Now, income में अभी तक जितने TDS section which you saw, was there any section where capital gains or receipts were getting taxable except compulsory acquisition wala section? Think and revise. Was there any section where capital gain is the income, right? But it was nowhere getting tax deductible if you see. Think abhi tak, right? So this section was a section which was introduced with a very common transaction which was happening was sale and purchase of immovable property, right? Sale and purchase of immovable property, many people do, many people have properties, many people generate income of it. But government, obviously, they have an information through registry department, but they wanted a more certain information and they wanted the tax to come timely on it. So they introduced a section 194 IA, whereby the buyer of the immovable property will deduct TDS, he get a property, will deduct TDS at the rate of 1%, if the consideration for the immovable property is more than 50 lakhs. Or is 50 lakhs or more. I should write it like that. So if it is 50 lakhs, you have to deduct the TDS on the entire consideration, not 1% of excess amount, here on the entire amount. So the buyer of immovable property will deduct TDS on the consideration, obviously, if the consideration, not one-time consideration, the consideration of the immovable property entirely is 50 lakhs or more. 50 lakhs will be, this section would be applicable. The TDS has to be deducted by whom? The buyer. When the TDS has to be deducted? When the consideration is 50 lakhs or more. Here again and again, why focusing on the word of consideration? Because this is the actual consideration. Irrespective of whatever the stamp duty value is, you don't have to see for this section. The section 194 IEMA, what you have to focus is on the actual consideration. If the stamp duty value is 60 lakhs, the TDS and your actual consideration is 55 lakhs, you will deduct the TDS on 55 and not on 60. If the actual consideration is 49 lakhs, stamp duty value is 55 lakhs, then will you deduct the TDS? The answer is no. The answer is no. Whatever is the actual consideration, on that you have to deduct the TDS. And here, the actual consideration is less than 50 lakhs, no TDS is required to be deducted. Now, Ismail, what you have to remember is that here we're talking about the actual consideration. So if there are two sellers of a same movable property. If there are two sellers of the same immovable property, so suppose there is this house which I purchased from Mr. Ram and Mr. Sham. Both are brother and both are the co-owners. Okay, both are the co-owners. And I gave a consideration of 70 lakhs. 35 lakhs to Mr. Ram, 35 lakhs to Mr. Sham. Now a question comes whether the TDS has to be deducted. Think. Now the question comes whether the TDS has to be deducted. Think. Okay, Pooja, noted. See, I have specifically told not to do that abhi ke liye. Okay, so Akashni says TDS will not be deducted as each pay is less than 50 lakhs. So Mesh says, ma'am, TDS has to be deducted. Okay. Some other answer, not some other answer, with more answer on yes or no, please. TDS is deducted, but as per section, no TDS shall be deducted. Okay, Ayush, okay. समझ नहीं आया but ठीक है. Okay. So the answer is the TDS has to be deducted. Because remember, यहाँ पे the condition is that the actual consideration of immovable property, if is 50 lakhs or more, then the TDS liability triggers. The threshold limit here is for the immovable property का consideration. Unlike rent, 194I, वहाँ पे the limit is 2,40,000 per pay. 2,40,000 per pay. But here it is not per pay. Here the threshold is the moment the property ka consideration is 50 lakhs or more. Even if there are 10 buyers hardly getting 10 lakhs also, then also you have 10 sellers hardly getting 10 lakhs also. Then also you have to deduct the TDS if the actual consideration crosses or is 50 lakhs or more. Clear? So यहाँ पे rent वाला नहीं लगेगा because that is per pay condition. This is not per pay condition. ठीक है? Another thing which you have to remember here is that consideration में क्या आएगा? What will come under consideration? Now, generally this happens when we are discussing about sale of flats in societies. Okay, and people very smartly what they do, they reduce 50 lakhs say amount and they show कि property के लिए hardly we have got 48 lakhs, 2 lakhs parking area के लिए लिया है, 2 lakhs maintenances के लिए लिया है, 2 lakhs electric fittings के लिए. So basically they are showing very smartly that the actual consideration of the flat is less than 50. And other thing which we have taken is for basically the parking space. Parking space का भी you have to pay the amount to the seller, and other facilities, club facilities के लिए लिया है, and all club membership के लिए लिया है, and all that amount. So they very smartly used to divide the amount. So very recently a clarification come to the finance minister that the actual consideration will include all those things, club memberships, parking, electricity, etc. And then it has to be seen whether it is crossing 50 or more. Why again I'm saying why do they do so? Because people even if were paying 60 lakhs, तो वो क्या करते थे? They used to show that 48 lakhs is for property, 5 lakhs is for parking area, 2 lakhs is for club membership, and so falana things are for so and so things. But property ka consideration is less than 50. But actually they had paid 60. So the government says that the consideration would be considered this for the property plus the entire facilities which you are paying it for the seller one time. Okay. And obviously, this is a section where no TAN is required. This is a very important section, very, very common section. Without Mukhtar, Sikh Bhai, Ayush, Sumesh, Akashni, anyone has any doubt? Vimal? Sure, great. Then another section which was included in no TAN category is 194 IB. IB. Payment of rent by certain individuals or HUF. Now, सबसे पहले, the moment you see the word rent and you will say, "Ma'am, धोखा," because 194I is about rent. Correct? You will say, "Ma'am, 194I is about rent." But Baba, I may individual and HUF, when do they deduct TDS? When do an individual or HUF deduct TDS under section 194I? When in the preceding financial year, they have a turnover of 1 crore in case of business, more than 1 crore in the case of business, and more than 50 lakhs gross receipts in case of profession, right? Correct? Yes. So this section is for those individual and HUF who are not falling under 194I. Who are not falling under 194I. Suppose you are a salary person paying rent. तब किसमें TDS काटोगे? 194 IB में. Suppose you are an individual, you are having a business but not having a turnover of more than 1 crore. Then किसमें TDS काटोगे? 194 IB में. So this section is for who? This section is for individual and HUF who are not covered under section 194 IB. 194 I. So IB is for rent, correct, but except for individual HUF not covered under section 194I. This section again was introduced to get the information of rent paid and to get TDS on so and so rental income where the rent amount was exceptionally sufficiently high and still TDS was getting escaped because of the limitation placed under section 194I. What did I say? The rent paid were in good amount, but since they were not covered under 194I, no TDS information was getting diverted to the government. So that's why this section was introduced. Like suppose there's a director who is living in a good, humongous, huge flat, okay, and they actually pay rent of 1 lakh or more per month. But still the government was not getting any information because they were not having any business. He was a director in the company, was just getting a salary. And he was paying the rent of 1 lakh. And obviously the other party was having an income of 1 lakh per month. But still it was not getting covered anywhere because of this limitation. So that's why 194 IB was introduced, number one. Number two, next question is, it is clear who is the deductor? The individual or HUF not covered under section 194I. Who is the deductee? Any person who is a resident to whom the rent is paid. Simple. Now, what is the rate? The rate is 5%. The rate is 5% of the rent. Now, what is the threshold limit? So, this section would only be applicable, listen carefully, when the monthly rent is more than 50,000. When the monthly rent or part of the month's rent is more than 50,000. If I'm paying a monthly rent of 20,000, this section is not applicable for me. But if I'm paying a monthly rent of 70,000, then I have to listen carefully that 194 IB is applicable for me. If you are deducting section TDS under section 194I because you are having business and turnover and stuff, then you do not have to come for 194 IB. But if you are escaping from 194 IB, then you have to see whether you are covered under IB or not. Okay. So if I'm paying 70,000 rent, I will deduct the TDS. Now rent is generally paid monthly, right? Again, if I have to deduct TDS every month, deposit it every month, file the return. So again, compliance is covered in Ajay, right? And remember, when I created that boundary for you to understand is that people have less compliances and no need. Sorry, I'll show you here. This boundary that the people have less compliances and no need to get that. So if the rent is paid every month, and the TDS is paid or deducted every month, that the benefit of this section is getting defeated. That's why the TDS here under this section has to be deducted only once. Only once. And when the TDS has to be deducted, this is very important. The TDS has to be deducted for the last month of the previous or the last month of the tenancy if the property is vacated before. Now, example, simple सा example है इसमें. 1 second. Yeah. Simple example है, if the rent I'm paying is more than 50,000 every month, okay, and I'm paying the rent. So whenever there is the last month of tenancy, whenever it's the last month of tenancy, in that time I will deduct the TDS at the rate of 5%, and I will pay him the remaining. So 6,96,000 ka 5% I will deduct, which is 34,800, and then March के month में so and so payment would happen. I'll not deduct the TDS in the entire period of 12 months every month. I will deduct the TDS one time in the last month of tenancy. So I'll explain that, or in the last month of the year, which is March. How much of the entire rent का 5%? Entire rent का 5%. Simple. 6,96,000 का 5%. The net payment which I will be making during the March month would be 23,200 after the TDS reduction of 34,800. Clear? Yes. Now you will say, ma'am, suppose December, you know कि कब last month है of tenancy. Suppose ma'am December में he vacated the flat. So simple, December month, I know this is my last month of tenancy generally, unless it's a fighting case. I know. So last month ki rent mein I will deduct the TDS. So December ke rate mein I will deduct the TDS. It should be December tak ke rate pe 5,22,000 ka 5%, and I will be making the net payment of 58,000 minus 26,100 of 31,900. Simple. Clear? किसी को कोई डाउट? अभी आई हैव नॉट कंप्लीटेड. अभी यहां तक किसी को कोई डाउट? Okay, the screen is not visible. Vijay will come to that also. Perfect. Now this section is also very important. Now यहाँ पे सोमेश को इतना गवर्नमेंट के पास करोड़ का रेवेन्यू है, सो इतने से इंटरेस्ट में दे विल नॉट गेट इम्पैक्टेड. Because they don't want to overburden the person with the compliances. इसलिए just one time TDS deduction, that too at the end of the year, or if you're vacating early, then the last month of tenancy. Very good. Prabhas has a very good question, ma'am. What if the rent changes in between? It goes below 50, then what would I do? So in very less cases, it will go below 50, number one. Number two, see, rent, COVID में आपने देखा होगा, it might have revised, but in general, it does not go below 50. Yes, it may happen that it increases for more than 50. Increases for more than 50, so जिस month के लिए increase more than 50 हुआ है, so suppose you were paying 45, then the return got increased and now you're paying 55. So on that 55,000 वाले month में फाइनल अमाउंट पे यू विल डिडक्ट द TDS 55 के. अगर सपोज 6 मंथ्स में 55 हो गया तो 55 into 6 into 5%. करेक्ट. टोटल रेंट इन अ ईयर नहीं, अमृत कौर, it would be the rent of the last month minus TDS on total rent of the year would be the balance which you will be paying in the last month. It's from all tenant. Sumesh, what do you mean? See, tenant here it is first of all individually registered, not covered under 194I. If you're covered under 194I, you will not deduct under section 194IA. So IB. I see these sections are the sections where a person is not covered generally, but the government wants the TDS information, the source, the income information, and they want the TDS because the transactions involved are of good value. Only resident person. Pay only resident. Acha, now so I told you कि 5% TDS काटना है. Now generally क्या होता है? We'll come to that section also. There's this general section where it is said that if the PAN is not provided, then you have to deduct the TDS and instead of 5%, you have to deduct the TDS at a higher rate of 20%. If the PAN is not provided by the deductee, then you have to deduct the TDS at a higher rate of 20%. Okay. So now suppose your landlord did not provide you the PAN, but you have to deduct the TDS. अब मार्च आ गया, आपने उन्हें बोला सर जी मेरे को रेंट का पेमेंट करना है आपको, बट मेरे पे TDS लायबिलिटी है. आई हैव टू पे यू द रेंट पेमेंट, बट आई हैव टू डिडक्ट द TDS. So give me your PAN. He does not give you PAN. Now, as per rule, you have to deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%. As per rule, you have to deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%. Now, आप क्या करोगे? आपने देखा भाई February तक तो रेंट दे दिया है. अगर you will deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%, it will come to 1,39,200. 6,96,000 is my total 12 months का रेंट. ठीक है, इसी पे 5% I used to do, right? Correct? Yes or no? But since he has not provided the TAN, I have to deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%. But लास्ट मंथ का रेंट कितना देना है मेरे को? ओनली 58,000. कहां से रिकवर करूं बाकी? From where should I recover the remaining amount? So the government says that in case where a PAN is not provided by the landlord and you have to deduct the TDS at a higher rate, then in that case, the TDS should not be more than the rent of the last month. So here I have to deduct the TDS at a higher rate, which is 20%, which is 1,39,200. But since the maximum amount which I can forfeit or which I have to pay is only 58,000, so the TDS which would be deducted in this case would be 58,000, and nothing would be given to him as rent. And entire 58,000 will go as TDS. So the TDS in case of higher rate cannot be more than the last month का rent. So you will say, ma'am, landlord तो कहेगा कि rent तो दिया नहीं. I will put a case on you. You will say, कर लो, because I have deposited the TDS on your behalf. See it. ठीक है? So this is what practical question will come, and this will definitely come. It is very important section. Clear हुआ this 20% वाला point? Very good. So next section which comes under the category is 194M. 194IA clear, IB clear. Next is 194F. This is also a very lovely section. Everyone, please, on the screen. Okay. Now, 194M talks about payment in respect of commission. नीरव, टेनेंट थोड़ी को क्रेडिट मिलेगा, लैंडलॉर्ड को मिलेगा ना टीडीएस का क्रेडिट. बाद में जब डील C20 गवर्नमेंट को इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल गई, आप उसे बोल रहे हो कि भाई मैंने टीडीएस से डिपॉजिट करा दिया, ये रहा रिसीट, यू डिड नॉट गिव मी द टैन नंबर. There is a category in which you will tell PAN is not given. Yes, coming. Okay. So next category is for section 194M, which is applicable again only for payment made by individual or HUF. So we are talking about payer who is individual and HUF. Okay, and they are paid for contract. The payment is made for contract work or for commission or for professional fees. You will take a moment, you will say, ma'am, abhi to 194C, 194H और 194J पड़ा था, right? उसमें भी तो same nature of payment से, correct? You are absolutely right. But there also, individual and HUF were exempt from deducting the TDS if they did not have the turnover in the preceding financial year, right? Correct. So here, those individual and HUF are covered who are exempt under section 194C from deducting TDS. अब 194C एक बार रिवाइज करो, इंडिविजुअल एंड एचएफ को कब TDS नहीं काटना होता? When in the preceding financial year the turnover is less than 1 crore or gross receipt is less than 50 lakhs in case of business or profession respectively, correct? Also, they do not, even if they have the turnover, but if they are making personal nature payments, remember personal nature payments, catering, ghar ka shadi, then also they did not have to deduct the TDS. So that would be covered here. Similarly, those individual would be covered here. Similarly, 194H may, if individual or HUF were not having the requisite turnover in the preceding financial year, so commission may they did not have to pay, deduct the TDS, right? Similarly, 194J may, if they did not have the turnover or in the preceding financial year, or they were making the payments in the nature of personal purpose, then also they did not have to deduct the TDS, like I gave an example of advocate for family disputes, right? So first of all, you have to understand who are covered here. Who are covered here. If they are covered in those sections, 194M is not applicable. But who are covered here? 194C में turnover वाला और personal nature वाला. 194H में only turnover वाला. And 194J में turnover and personal nature. Now 194J में there are typical professional services, technical services applicable to individual HUF. But this section only talks about professional services. So any fees paid for technical services by individual HUF would not be covered here because they are only professional services are covered. Number one. Number two, payer is clear. Number three, who is the payee? So individual HUF making any payment to a resident person. Any resident person for listen carefully. For an amount of more than 50 lakhs. For an amount of more than 50 lakhs in the nature of contract, commission or brokerage during a contract, commission, brokerage or professional services during an year will deduct TDS at the rate of 5%. At the rate of 5%. So if to a single person, I am making a contractual payment of 10 lakhs. I am paying commission of 20 lakhs. I am giving professional fees of 30 lakhs. Single person को. More than 50 lakhs का payment हो गया. 10 lakhs contract, 20 lakhs commission, 30 lakhs professional fees. I will deduct TDS at the rate of 5% on the entire amount. On the entire amount of 60 lakhs. On the entire amount of 60 lakhs. I am a salaried individual. I'm paying 10 lakhs for contract, 20 lakhs for commission, 30 lakhs for professional services. 194M would applicable. So 194M की applicability देखने के लिए first you have to see whether individual and HUF are covered here or not. Yes or no. If they are covered in those particular section, 194M is not applicable. Then you will see through a single person whether the payment is made for more than 50 lakhs. If it is made for more than 50 lakhs, it can be for separate category, which is contract, commission or profession. But in aggregate, as it is more than 50 lakhs, then this section would be applicable. I can pay hardly 5 lakhs for contract and 30 lakhs for professional services and 20 lakhs for commission, then it is applicable. It is applicable. तीनों nature का मिला के per pay more than 50 lakhs, if it is there, it is applicable. Okay, so with this, I'll do one question for it. Examine the TDS provision that would be attracted in the following cases, and if so, under which section, also specify the rate of TDS applicable in each case. Assume that all the payments are made to residents. Mr. Ganesh, an individual on retail business with a turnover of 2.5 crores in 2021. 2.5 crore in 2021, that means 190. He has a turnover of more than 1 crore in the preceding financial year. He is applicable to deduct TDS under 194C, J, I, H, right? So he made a contract payment for repair of residential house, 5 lakhs. He made a commission to Mr. Wallis for business purposes, 80,000. Which section में TDS would be deducted? इसमें 194C में you will say that TDS is deducted? The answer is no. Why? Because the payment is made for residential purpose. Personal purposes are not covered under 194C. So 5 lakhs तो 194C में नहीं आएगा. Also 194M में भी नहीं आएगा. Why? Because the payment made to a single person is not crossing 50 lakhs. Okay, then 80,000. 80,000 194H would be applicable. Yes, it would be applicable because the TDS is the commission is more than 15,000. Is more than 15,000. I am a salaried person giving commission of 10 lakhs to 5 different person, or say 20 lakhs to 5 different person. Will 194M be applicable on me for those payments? The answer is no. 50 lakhs is per payer limit. I can pay commission of to different person. It can be more than 50 lakhs, does not matter. Per payer limit is 50 lakhs. Okay? Now let's see the next one. Rajesh, a wholesale trader whose turnover was 95 lakhs in previous year 2021. His turnover is 95 lakhs. That means he is not applicable under 194C, 194H and 194J. Makes a contract payment for reconstruction of residential house payment made between January to March. 20 lakhs in January, 15 lakhs in February, 20 lakhs in March. Total how much? 55 lakhs. Total how much? 55 lakhs. Okay. So 55 lakhs pay, whether TDS will be deducted? The answer is yes. Under which section? 194M. How much TDS would be deducted? 55 lakhs or 5%. Similarly, please do for Satish, a salaried individual, and Dheeraj, a pensioner. On Vijay, on the entire amount, until and unless it is clearly written on the excess amount, you will deduct the TDS on the entire amount. Like हमारा अभी हमने पढ़ा 0.1% in 194Q or 194N में, on those you have to deduct. ठीक है? Very good, Prabhat. But to do section 194M, first you will see individual and HF whether those section is applicable for 194M or not. Then you will see the limit per party. Okay? Clear? Very good. Now let me proceed to you with some miscellaneous points. Number 1, जितना भी amount पे TDS कटता है, that entire amount is your income. TDS is not. That entire amount is your income, not the amount which is credited, but the entire amount is income. That is specifically written. Another thing which is specifically written under section 196 is you will not deduct TDS when you're making any sum or interest or dividend to government, RBI, statutory corporations, mutual funds, because they are ultimately the main income revenue authority. deducting their TDS, depositing back to them does not make sense. ठीक है. Number 4, GST पे कभी TDS नहीं कटेगा. GST component पे there would be no TDS, and on the bill, sorry, whatever is the value, on that you will deduct the TDS. Number 5 is the returns. How is the process for sections other than 194 IA, IB and M? ठीक है. अभी हम जनरल प्रोसेस समझेंगे. प्लीज ध्यान से एवरीवन ऑन द स्क्रीन. You deduct the TDS. Think yourself as a deductor. You have to deposit the TDS by 7th of the next month. So if the TDS is deducted, whatever TDS you have deducted, suppose you're making various payments in a month, total TDS which you have deducted has to be deposited by 7th of the next month. So July में whatever TDS have been deducted, have to deposit it by 7th August. Deposit means एक simple चालान होता है जिसमें you have to tell how much TDS you have deducted. You will just fill in the amount. Corporate का कितना काटा, non-corporate का कितना काटा, that's it. And you have to deposit it. It's just a 10 minutes exercise if you know how much TDS is deducted during the month. ठीक है, 7th of the next month. But March का TDS has to be deposited by 30th of April. Because it is the final month, last month, closing of books, filing, considering all the bills, asking for the bills, making fee, all the payments, so 30th April का time दिया हुआ है. The 7th of the month, but for the March till 30th April. ठीक है, then कहानी बढ़ेगा. You have to, after deposit, you have to file a TDS return. TDS return has to be filed every quarter. TDS return में क्या जाता है? The details of deduction. Deposit के time में it's a 10 minutes exercise. You just have to deposit your tax. There's nothing big in it. This you have to deposit monthly. But return, TDS return has to be filed quarterly. Every quarter कितना TDS मैंने deduct किया, उसको कौन से चालान से deposit कराया, किसका TDS deduct किया, with PAN number, किस section में TDS deduct किया, everything goes under my TDS return. It goes every quarter. So for April to June quarter, it is filed by 31st July. For July to September quarter, 31st October. For October to November quarter, October to December quarter, 31st Jan. And for January to March quarter, it is not 30th April, it is 31st of May. So hence it is last date of the next month of the quarter. Okay, so this is, you have to file your TDS return. This is how you file your TDS return. Any doubt? Now, if there are certain penalties, we'll take break in another 15 minutes. Please, everyone on the screen, I hope you have your calculators ready, okay? Now, obviously, we know that if we will not deduct the TDS or not deposit the TDS before filing of return, we will not get the deduction of the same under section 40. It would be disallowed under section 40A PGBP, correct? Remember? Yes. So, that is one thing. Another thing is you would be an assessee in default. You would be an assessee in default. Assessee matlab you are an assessee. You did not do all the obligations properly which were applicable to you, so you become an assessee in default. Third is you have to pay interest. You have to pay interest. What is the interest? So if you do not deduct the TDS when it was deductible, जो time of deduction हमारा सबसे important होता है, right? If you do not deduct the TDS when as per the time of deduction, in case of payment वाला section, payment के time पे, in case of due or payment, whichever is earlier के time पे, then the liability interest would be charged from you at the rate of 1% per month or part of the month. So per month or part of the month means if there is a delay of just 10 days, then also full 1% would be charged. आपने अगर TDS डिडक्ट नहीं किया, this is late deduction, then interest would be charged from you at the rate of 1% of part of the month. And after deduction, if you did not deposit the TDS timely, after deduction, if you did not deposit the TDS timely, then late deposit का आपसे interest लगेगा at 1.5% per month. 1.5% per month. So what did I say? If you do not deduct the TDS, there would be late deduction ka interest at 1% per month or part of the month of what? Of the TDS amount. And if you after deduction you did not deposit it, timely, then 1.5% per month from date of deduction to date of deposit. From date of deduction to date of deposit, and this would be from the date when it has to be deducted till the date it is actually deducted. We'll see one example. Everyone on the screen, I hope you have your calculators. So suppose you have done these transactions in a year. 194C में date of transaction is 1st August, date of payment is 3rd September. 192 में 30th April का date of transaction है, which is like my month, and date of payment is 1st May. 194J में 11th of October and 14th of February is the date of payment. 194B 1st December to 2nd February, and 194M 31st December and 7th January. So generally, what are the date of deduction as per the respective section? Due or paid, whichever is earlier when we talk about 194C. 192 at the time of payment. One second. 192 at the time of payment. 194J at the time of due or credit, whichever is earlier, which is 11 January, and 194M may be due or credit, whichever is earlier, so 31st December. But आपने actual deduction कब किया? 31st December को इन सब का, मतलब आपने ultimately December में आके सारा deduction किया, and यहाँ पे February में आके. ठीक है, तो जितना भी इस क्वार्टर का था आपने 31st December को सब डिडक्शन किया. What date you had to do the deduction for? So let's take first example. 194C में you had to do the deduction on 1st of August, which is my date of transaction. But when did you do the deduction? On 31st of December. Late deduction हुआ, correct? Late deduction हुआ. अभी I'm not considering about deposit. Is it a late deduction? Yes. By how many months? August पूरा, September, October, November, December, 5 months. So 45,000 का 1% for 5 months. 45,000 का 1% for 5 months would be my interest on late deduction under section 2011A. So अभी deposit कुछ नहीं देख रहे. Deposit starts from when you deduct it, right? When you deduct something, then deposit timeline start. But abhi we are just seeing at how much late you were to deduct your TDS. Okay. Similarly, सैलरी का टीडीएस आपने कब काटा? 1 मई को काटना चाहिए था, बट यू डिडक्टेड इट ऑन 31 December. You are late by how many months? May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 8 months. So 1,24,000 at the rate of 1% for 8 months. It will give to 9920. Then 11th January वाला पेमेंट पे आते हैं, which is my 194J. फिर मैंने टीडीएस काटे फरवरी क्वार्टर में आके, ठीक है, फरवरी मंथ में आके. 11 जनवरी को टीडीएस काटना था. आई डिडक्टेड इट ऑन 28 February. I deducted it on 28 February. What could be my late? Is it a late deduction? Yes. By how many months? 11 January to 11 Feb 1 month, and then 12th Feb से लेके 12th Feb से लेके 11th March is another month, right? Or sorry, 11th Feb से लेके 11th Feb से लेके 10th of March is another month, correct? Yes, but you will say कि मैम पूरा month तो हुआ नहीं, but month or part of the month. So 2 months का interest on 1,47,000 at the rate of 1% would be applicable for late deduction. Then last, I had to deduct TDS on 17th, or I had to deduct TDS on 31st of December. But when did I deduct the TDS? 28th February. How many months late deduction? 2 months. 31st December से 30th January. 30th January से 28th February, 2 months. Clear? This is for late deduction. Now, अब डिडक्ट कर लिया, उसको 7th of the next month तक डिपॉजिट कराना है, राइट? अगर आपने 7th of the next month से तक डिपॉजिट नहीं कराया, then TDS is applicable. Then the interest is applicable under section 2011A at the rate of 1.5% from the time of deduction till the time you actually deposit. So this is not the time of deduction which should have been, because wahan tak to you have already deposited 1%. This is the actual time of deduction till the time you actually deposit it. So actual time of deduction say actual time of deposit. So you will not consider this column because yahan se yahan ka interest you have already deposited under 2011A for late deduction. Now yahan se yahan ka you have to deposit, right? Yahan se yahan tak ka period would be my late deposit. So let's see how much is the late deposit का interest. Now 31st December का अगर आपने 7th January तक deposit करा दिया होता, there would have been no interest, right? But you did not deposit it. You deposited on 2nd March. 31st December का जितना भी आपने TDS काटा था, you deposited on 2nd March, and 28th February का जितना भी TDS काटा था, you deposited on 31st of March. Okay, so now what will happen? Late deposit would happen. You will not see this for late deposit. You will see it from actual deduction. I'm saying it again and again. Okay, now let's see how much late deposit. How many months ka late deposit would be there? You will not count it from 7th of January, which was the due date. You will count it from the date of actual deduction. So 31st December, say 30 January 1, 28 February 2 months, and abhi part of the month which is falling in March So 3 months का interest आ जाएगा on 45,000. So 45,000 into 1.5% into 3. So 45,000 into 1.5% into 3. Then coming to next, 1,24,000 को you deposited on 2nd March again. 1,24,000 into 1.5% into 3. Then 28th Feb वाला को you had to deposit it by 7th March, but you did not. So 28th Feb से लेके 27th March तक 1 month, and your 31st March को this coming part of the 2nd month. So 2 months का interest at 2,940 at 1.5% into 2. Similarly, this also 2 months, 2,24,000 into 1.5% into 2. किसी को कोई doubt, you can copy this as an example and then we'll move further. Anyone has any doubt? Vijay, Akashni, Prabhas, Sumesh, Jameel, anyone? Neerav? Very good. Thank you, Ayush. Yes, interest section is same 2011A for both late or deduction and late deposit. Yes, Prabha. Even if it is late by 1 day of the next month, the whole month would be counted as one. Thank you, Sneha. Okay. Now, we were here. So we were here. अब यहाँ पे we have seen the circumstances of late deduction, correct? We saw the circumstances of late deposit. What about late filing of return? If you do not file off your return, what will happen? There would be a fee which would be applicable, which is under section 234E. 200 per day. 200 per day for every day for which you do not file your return. So 31st July के बाद या 31st October के बाद या 31st January or 31st May के बाद 200 per day would be applicable to you if you do not file the return. But this would not cross the amount of TDS which was deducted, for which you have to file the return. So recently in my known someone deducted the TDS of 40,000 but did not deposit it and obviously did not file the return. So एक तो late deposit का उनको interest लगा ही लगा, जो notice आया उसके साथ साथ 200 per day का भी default का लगा, ठीक है? And they did not deposit it for the entire year. So 200 into 365, which comes to 73,000. But it was limited to 40,000 only. So there was a fees of 40,000 which they had to pay. Though it is 73,000, but it was limited to 40,000 because how much आपने government का पैसा रोका है, only that much fees would be applicable. So 140,000 which you deducted, you have to deposit it. उस पे interest there was there, and also there was additional fees which was applicable of 200 per day, but maximum up to the TDS which is deducted. Okay. Clear? not penalty. This is the fee. Penalty आप लोगों का would be applicable at final level, so I'll not touch that. Extra fee of 40K. So TDS तो आपने deposit करना ही करना है government को, but extra fee of 40K. And obviously the interest of late deduction, late deposit. The term here is fee, it is not penalty. Please do not interchangeably use such words. If it is interest, it is interest. If it is fee, it is fee. If it is penalty, it is penalty. So जो term है उसको वैसे use करना. Okay. Now for those sections which are other than 194, IA, IB and IM we did. Now for what about 194 IA, IB and IM? So IM say 194 IA, IB and M. Okay? So let's see for those. उनको क्या करना है? उनको कुछ नहीं करना. You have to do only one thing. One 194 IA, 194 IB and 194 M. They do not have to do anything. What do they have to do is they simply have to deduct the TDS as per the timelines, actual consideration या last month वाला या 50 lakhs वाला, ठीक है? They have to deduct the TDS. अब deposit के लिए there is no 7 months का timelines and return के लिए there is no quarterly timeline. This happens in a single form, in a single challan. This is a return cum challan process. Return cum challan means उसी में return भी file हो रहा है, उसी में challan भी file हो रहा है. Challan मतलब you are depositing it also and you are filing the return. Return means you are providing the statement of the information also. Everything in just single shot through a form which are applicable. In a single form, आपको कुछ नहीं करना. You deducted the TDS. You have to file these forms. You just have to type form 26QB. There's a whole detailed form. So they will ask for consideration. They'll ask for PAN of the seller, PAN of the buyer, property address, simple date of transaction, what is the TDS deducted, and what is the TDS deposited. And you have to click. It will say you to deposit the TDS, and you will click. With the same click, the same form में return is filed. Return का क्या मतलब होता है? Government को information भी मिल गया for the transaction, right? So nothing has to be done. Now what are the timelines? The timelines are 30 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted. So suppose if the transaction of purchase of immovable property happened on 3rd October. I have to deduct the TDS on 3rd October. ठीक है, 3rd October को TDS काट दिया तो मुझे return filing और चालान कब तक deposit कराना है? By 30th of November. 30 days from the end of the month of deduction. So October 31st October के end of the month हो गया 30 days वहां से 30th November तक. Clear? Simple. There is no other falana decliner thing. One more thing, after you file either your returns or quarterly returns or through form 26QB, 26QC, QD, you have to issue a certificate. Certificate is generated once you file the return within 15 days of the last day of the filing of return, or within 15 days when you file the return. which is a certificate which tells the deductee that so and so TDS is deducted under so and so section for so and so period. ठीक है? So form 16 होता है and इसके केस में 16A होता है generally, and here there are form 16B, 16C, 16C and 16D. That is an information which is required. But for you, this 30 days का time limit you have to remember. ठीक है? Last topic under TDS is section 197 and 197A. Just the last topic for TDS. Then we'll take 5 minutes का break पक्का. Now 197 and 197A क्या कहता है? The simple सा चीज़ है. Students, you see there are obviously TDS reduction and 10%, 15% and all these sections पे your TDS is deducted. But you might not have income. Think yourself as a deductee. You might not have taxable income, or you might have taxable income but you have deductions in such a high amount, or you have brought forward losses that your entire income may not become taxable, right? So there are two options for you to request the deductor to not deduct the TDS. One is a mode from where you get a certificate of lower deduction or no deduction from the authorities, which is your income tax authority, which is your assessing officer. And another is on the basis of self-declaration. This is self-declaration limited only to particular sections, and this is to AO. So 197 में क्या होता है? You go to AO and you say कि भाई मेरे को एक certificate दे दो. So as not like that, but please issue a certificate to me so that I can give it to my sources to not deduct the TDS. See, this is my information. I have huge brought forward losses. मेरा 35 AD में investment था, मेरा 35 में investment था, so I have lots of losses. Please, and I have lots of deductions. So please do not deduct my TDS. Give me a certificate. So the AO will issue the certificate after considering all the facts that this person has lots of losses and deductions. Do not deduct his TDS. So he will issue the copy of those to the sources, to my deductor. That please do not deduct the TDS, and they will not deduct the TDS. As simple as that. Next is a form of self-declaration. Self-declaration. Next is a form of self-declaration whereby only if there's E wala part also, you can ignore that. Only if I'm having income in these particular sections, only if the payment is to be made in these particular sections, then I will give a declaration to the deductor. I will give a declaration to the deductor under form 15G that please do not deduct my TDS, as my tax liability would be nil, as the tax on the estimated total income of the previous year in which such income is to be included will be nil. So suppose, but only on these particular sections, which is premature PDF withdrawal, interest on securities, interest other than securities. 194D is insurance commission, DA insurance, life insurance maturity taxable, 194I rent and units of mutual fund ka income. Okay, so only in these particular sections, if I have an income, so इनके source को I will go and I will say that please do not deduct my TDS since my total tax liability would be nil, and I file a declaration under form 15G which will have my PAN number compulsorily on it. Okay, but one second. So suppose if I have only FD interest, if I have only FD interest and no other income, and FD interest is hardly 4 lakhs, and I have deductions, not hardly 2 lakhs, and I have no other income, so obviously no tax liability would come. But as per 194A, they are required to deduct TDS since it is more than 40%, since it is more than 40,000, so they will deduct the TDS. But if I give them this declaration under form 15G, they will not deduct the TDS. And if I give that declaration that I do not have any taxable income or tax amount due, including this income, then no tax would be deducted. Okay? But this section mein I am not allowed to file a declaration if these incomes are more than the basic exemption limit. If these incomes are more than the basic exemption limit. Ma'am, matlab, simple sa matlab hai, suppose I have FD interest of 4 lakhs. Then I cannot file form 15G to a bank because my income is more than the basic exemption limit. My income is more than the basic exemption limit. So can I say form 15G can only be filed when the income is less than the basic exemption limit? The moment this FD interest is more than the basic exemption limit, even if I have lots of deduction to finally make my tax liability nil, still then also I cannot file the return of income. Still I cannot file form 15G, sorry. Is it clear? So 15G is a self-declaration made only to the sources where the nature of payment is coming under these sections. This can be made only when the tax on the income is nil, but obviously the income which I am generating from these particular resources should be less than the basic exemption limit. If it is more than the basic exemption limit, I cannot file the return of income. किसी को कोई doubt? No, it will not be deducted TDS. So generally 15G, अगर आपको file करना है, you must file it in April itself. And senior citizen के लिए the same thing is applicable, but it is applicable under form 15H. So if you're a senior citizen who's of 60 years or more, so if you're a senior citizen of 60 years or more, then you will file the same declaration under form 15H. यहाँ पे there is one benefit which is given to senior citizen. उसमें क्या था? If your income is more than basic exemption limit, if the interest income or the income from your this interest income on FD, or suppose your insurance commission or your withdrawal taxability is more than 1 lakh, is more than basic exemption limit, then you cannot file form 15G. But here in this particular section, even if your income is more than the basic exemption limit, but ultimately if your tax liability is coming nil, then you can file form 15H. So कहने का मतलब है senior citizens are allowed to file self-declaration even if their income is more than basic exemption limit, but ultimately the tax liability is nil, they can file Form 15H for the respective income. But for other than senior citizen, if the income is more than basic exemption limit, irrespective of the fact that the tax liability is nil, they are not allowed to file Form 15G. So relaxation is given to senior citizens to file Form 15H if the tax liability is nil. The restriction will not apply to resident senior citizen. Is it clear? See, ये offshore banking unit और ये सब you can choose to skip. Okay? Clear? So we'll take just 5-10 minutes break and we'll be back and do the remaining section and advanced tax. Okay? So please take a break, have something. I know it's an extended day. See you in 5-10 minutes. So welcome back after the break. Let's quickly take your few queries and then we'll proceed. Okay. Basic exemption limit. So you may have interest of 1 lakh. You may have your commission of insurance of 1 lakh. So then you can give a declaration to both of them. That they require to furnish in all form or a respective form of each section. Okay, so declaration and duplicate means declaration, or sometimes there are forms that have to be filed in duplicate or triplicate means uska 2 copies जाएगा. So you have to sign in original in both. So one the bank will keep with themselves, another they will send it to the department or for the document purpose for the department if the department asks. That is duplicate. Yes, definitely, and non-resident can apply for section 197, and I've seen lots of non-resident applying for the section 197. Anything else, Ismail? Sure. So now we'll proceed with two sections which I'm been delaying, and okay. One second. Section 206AA and 206AB. These sections, the references, obviously, if you have read the chapter, you may have seen it under all or the maximum of the sections that if PAN is not provided, TDS has to be deducted in the section 206AA at a higher rate, or 206AB. So what are these two sections and what are the importance of these two sections? So let's understand that very quickly. Okay, 1 second. I think the internet has gone. Okay. Now, what is section 206AA? The section 206AA talks about that the PAN has to be mandatory given. Obviously, you can write it on the invoice which you are issuing, or you can give him separately. Say invoice में mandatory आजकल सारे invoices पे PAN आता ही है, right? So the deductor has to have the PAN. If the PAN is not provided, the TDS would be deducted at the rate which is as per the section, simple, or 20%, whichever is higher, or 20%, whichever is higher. So whichever is higher, क्यों मैम 20% भी higher होगा? No. If you remember section 194B or BB, 30% is the rate, then it would be deducted at 30%. Or which other section has a high rate? I think 194B and BB are the one which have the highest rate. If we talk about 194C, the PAN is not provided. What you will do? You will deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%. And you remember the limitation which we discussed in section 194M, that the TDS would be deducted at the rate of 20%, but it would be maximum to the rent of the last month of the year or the last month of the occupancy. Correct? This is that. But two sections, there are exceptions. Section 194O and 194Q. Usme, if the PAN is not provided, the maximum deduction which you can make is up to 5%. 194O and 194Q. Again, I am saying, usme, if the PAN is not provided, the deduction would be 5%. So rate As per section of 5%, whichever is higher, it would obviously be 5%. But 194B and BBB case, if the PAN is not provided, you will deduct the TDS at 30% only. It will not be 20%. Okay? This is 206AA. Another section which was introduced last finance budget May, which was section 206AB. So the government want people to file maximum returns. They want people to disclose their income, even if they do not have taxable, but they want to encourage them, right? So section 206AB says that if you are a non-filer of income tax return, what is non-filer? I'll come to it. The TDS would be deducted at twice the rate of section or 5%, whichever is higher. Twice the rate of section or 5%, whichever is higher. So suppose we're talking about 194C and you are a non-filer of income tax return. You means deductee. Deductee is a non-filer of income tax return. So the deductor will deduct the TDS at the rate of twice the rate which is as per the section or 5%. So suppose we are talking about 194C and the deductee is individual. So the twice the rate would be 2% or 5%. So as per section 206B, if the individual is a non-filer, we'll deduct the TDS at the rate of 5%. If you're talking about 194J, the rate is 10%. So twice would be 20% or 5%. You will deduct the TDS at the rate of 20%. But who is a non-filer? Before that, you have to remember section 206AB is not applicable on 192, 192A, 194B, BB or 194N. Because उसमें 194N में non-filer का अलग से ही, remember there is a provision of 20 lakhs पे 2%, 1 crore पे 5%, remember? So 206AB is not applicable on non-filer of income tax returns. When a deductee does not file his income tax return, then the deductor, even if the plan is provided, can deduct TDS at a higher rate, which would be twice the rate of the section or 5%, whichever is higher. Okay? But यहाँ पे who is a non-filer? Non-filer is a person who has not filed his return of income for 2 assessment years. Who has not filed his return of income for 2 assessment years relevant to the 2 previous year, immediately prior to the previous year in which the TDS is required to be deducted. So suppose and the return filing period has passed for filing the return of these 2 assessment year, and the aggregate of TDS deducted and TCS collected in each year was 50,000 or more. Ma'am, kya matlab? Simple. So you would be a non-filer if you have not filed the return of 2 assessment years prior to the previous year, 2 assessment year relevant to the previous year, immediately prior to the previous year in which tax is deducted. We'll come to that. Also, in these 2 years each, the TDS which was deducted at your PAN, the TDS which was deducted or the TCS which was collected from you for these 2 years each is more than 50,000. So the government wants to know that what is the reason that if you have so much of TDS deducted and still you're not filing the return, that means something is fishy. So that means they apply a higher rate on you, a higher rate of TDS deduction on you. Just one second. They apply a higher rate of TDS deduction on you because they really want to know what is there that you have so much of TDS which is there in your kitty and still you're not filing the return. So what are these 2 assessment years? So suppose I'm filing the return for previous, we are talking about previous year 21-22, right? We're talking about previous year 21-22. So if the person has not filed his return of income for previous year 18-19 and previous year 19-20 both, then he would be a person in the category of non-filer, and you have to deduct the TDS at the rate of twice the rate of the section or 5%. Now you will ask, ma'am, how will we get to know that this person is a non-filer or not? Will we ask for ITRVs? How will we get to know as a deductor? So government में income tax portal में, if you log in, there is this section where you can see whether the PAN of a person is under the specified category of person or not. आपको बस PAN डालना है अपने deductor का, and you will get to know whether that person is a person in this specified category. If the answer comes yes, then you will deduct the TDS at higher rate. If the answer comes no, then you will not deduct the TDS at a higher rate. In fact, from this budget, it is not applicable to you though. This 2 assessment year is now reduced to 1. So government क्या करेगा? 1st April of each financial year में they will prepare a list. It would be uploaded. You just have to put the PAN number of the deductor to see whether he's covered under this section or not. You don't have to ask for the returns, or you don't have to get some declaration. Simply you have to see कि वो specified person category में है या नहीं है by putting the PAN. ठीक है? Now you will say, ma'am, if he's not providing the PAN also, he's a non-filer also, then which rate? So 206 AA के according and 206 AB के according, whichever is the higher rate coming, उस पे you will deduct the TDS. उस पे you will deduct the TDS. Clear? Anyone has any doubt in both these sections? किसी को कोई doubt in these two sections? Pooja, I did not understand your question of belated transaction. यहाँ पे हमने तो ये word ही नहीं use किया. Chalo, great. So with this, we wrap up our TDS provisions. You can give a read to them. All the important sections are covered. In case you come up with any doubt, we'll take up in the next class. Okay? Next, now take a deep breath, and now we'll proceed to our next segment of this chapter, which is advanced tax. Remember at the beginning of the class, I told you why these provisions are important. What are these provisions? Because these provisions are the government source of earning revenue in the previous year itself, right? One is the TDS route. Now is the advanced tax route. Now is the advanced tax route. What is advance tax? As the name suggests, advance tax is the advance payment of tax. It is a concept of advance payment of tax. And why it is called advance payment of tax? Because generally you pay the tax in the assessment year, right? But this tax is paid in the financial year or the previous year itself. So whatever you are earning in, for you it is 21-22, in the previous itself, you will pay the advance tax. But what are the provisions? Let's understand. First of all, advance tax is to be paid by all the person when their advance tax liability, I've used the word not tax liability, but I've used the word advance tax liability, is more than 10,000. Is more than or equal to 10,000. But a senior citizen is exempt. A senior citizen is exempt from the provisions of advance tax if he does not have a PGBP income. only then he's exempt from the provisions of advance tax. So it is applicable for all only if the advance tax liability is more than 10,000. I'm not talking about the income. I'm not talking about just general liability. I'm saying advance tax liability. Also, if a senior citizen does not have a PGBP income, he is not required to file advance tax. Now, how do you calculate this advance tax liability? First of all, advance tax is deposited in 4 installments, number 1. Number 2, this liability works on the basis of estimation, and as and when the year comes to an end, the estimation becomes more of the real sense. Okay? Now, you will estimate your income. You'll estimate your income for the year, entire income, uspe you will estimate the tax. Simple. Is this my advance tax? No. Is estimate tax say you will reduce your estimated TDS? So suppose you have considered 5 lakh of professional income. So you know 5 lakh pe 10% TDS katenge. Think yourself as an assessee, right? Think yourself as an assessee. So you know ki TDS would be deducted at so and so amount. And then whatever net amount comes, which is to be disposed by you, which has to be disposed by you means you have to deposit. So that would be your advance tax liability. That would be your advance tax liability. Usko in 4 parts you have to divide. 4 parts means 4 installments. What are those installments? Let's understand with the help of an example. So suppose I have estimated my income at 10,50,000, okay? And this way I know there is 5 lakh ka professional fees, professional services come out. So what will be my estimated tax? The estimated tax would be 1,32,600 on this income of 10,50,000. And since I've considered in this 10,50,000, 5 lakh ka income, which is from professional source, I reduce my estimated TDS liability of 50,000. So my advance tax liability comes to 82,600. Any doubt? No. Now, whether I'm eligible to pay advance tax or whether I'm obligated to pay advance tax, the answer is yes. Because my advance tax liability is more than 10,000. Okay, now how will I deposit this liability? Now this liability is to be deposited within 4 installments. In 4 installments, how these installments work? Simple. These installments are up to 15th June, I have to deposit up to 15th June, I have to deposit 15% of my advance tax liability. Of the entire advance tax liability, 15th June tak 15%, 15th September tak 45% of my advance tax liability, 15th December tak 75% of my advance tax liability, and 15th March tak 100% of my advance tax liability. 75%, so 15th June, 15%, 15th September, 45%, 15th December, 75%, and 15th March, 100%. So back to this example where my advance tax liability was of 82,600. So 15th June tak 15% of 82,600, which is 12,390, has to be deposited. Then 15th September tak 45%, which is 37,170, has to be deposited. But here you have to remember one thing. That 15% I've already deposited of what? Of 82,600, right? So the remaining which I have to deposit now is 45% of 82,600 has to be deposited by 15th September, which is my second installment. but already 12,390 must have been deposited in the first installment. So इस installment में I will deposit my remaining balance. इस date तक 45% should be deposited, but how much I will deposit in my second installment would depend upon how much I have deposited my earlier installment, which is first installment. इस डेट तक गवर्नमेंट को इतना एडवांस टैक्स मिल जाना चाहिए फ्रॉम माय साइड, बट हाउ विल इट बी डिटरमाइंड? It will be determined by 45% of my estimated liability minus how much I have to deposit it this time would be obviously what I have deposited earlier, that would be reduced. Up till this date, 45% has to be done. If I have not deposited anything in my full earlier liability, then I will deposit the entire amount. Then I will deposit the entire amount. Clear? Then 15th December tak 75% has to be deposited. 75% of my advance tax liability. Total 61,950. Will I deposit 61,950 in my third installment? The answer is no. 61,950 has to be deposited up to 15th December. That means 61,950 has to be deposited up to 15th December, but I've already deposited this and this, so the additional amount only has to be deposited. Total in accumulation has to be gone to the government, but second, third and fourth installment, obviously you will reduce the amount which have been deposited in the earlier installment or installments. Is it clear? Then in the fourth installment, 100% 82,600 सब पूरा जाना है. But 15th March को will I deposit पूरा 82,600? No, I've already deposited 12,390, 24,780, फिर 24,780, तो अब remaining कितना बच गया? सिर्फ 20,650. Is it clear? Yes or no? And this advance tax liability has to be computed including surcharge, including cess, pura estimation exact same लेना which you would have done in your assessment year, but only thing is you are paying all the things in advance. ठीक है? So you can take note of this example. And let me know if there's any query in this. So मैम estimation कैसे work करते हैं? Simple. See, salary की case में advance tax liability generally do not come if you do not have any other income other than salary, because your employer knows what is the salary. He will deduct the entire TDS as the section 192 and proper computation bन रहा है, so there is no problem. Business के case में you estimate that okay, this year you will have this much for profit, and obviously as and when the business get clear, your estimate may improve. Then जो भी आपका estimate आ रहा है, you will deposit it accordingly. But there is this problem ना, capital gain हो गया. Suppose I have capital gain, or suppose I have capital gain, or suppose I have dividend income, or suppose I have, it's my first year of PGBP, or suppose I have lotteries. So in cases में तो ma'am it is very difficult to estimate, because capital gain जब तक नहीं होगा, no, you will not know, or dividend जब तक नहीं होगा, you will not get to know. Then how will we estimate tax liability? So the government say, do not estimate the tax liability unless and until it is actually incurred. You do not have to estimate until and unless it is actually incurred. But the moment it is incurred, the moment in which quarter it is incurred, or before which installment it is incurred, then include them. Ma'am, example, yes. So everyone on the screen, please take this as a very important example. Suppose you have just business income, okay? You have just बिजनेस इनकम ऑफ 4,50,000 आपने एस्टिमेट किया मेरा टोटल इनकम और एस्टिमेट टैक्सेस पे कितना आया 10,400. Obviously you would have got repaid and nothing would have been payable, right? No liability. There's no liability, no advance tax. Correct? Yes. So आपने क्या किया फर्स्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट में there was no 15 जून को you did not deposit any advance tax. 15th of September को you did not deposit any advance tax because obviously there was no liability. But before the third installment, which is 15th December, capital gain incurred of 2,45,000. Capital gain incurred of 2,45,000. अब उसपे 20% plus surcharge करके plus cess करके tax liability comes at 50,960. Also at the same time now this 4,50,000 का rebate का benefit भी गया. So my total tax liability since my income is crossing 5 lakhs is coming to 61,360. 61,360, right? Yes or no? Correct? So in this case, what will I do? 15th June tak to obviously I did not have this income, so I did not pay any tax. 15th September tak I did not have any income, I did not pay any tax. But now when we are talking about 15th December, then I have an income and I have to pay the tax. And 15th December tak, what is the amount of advance tax which I have to be deposited? Estimate tax का 75%. So 61,360 का 75% which would come to 46,020 has to be deposited with the government. Simple. And then 100% has to be deposited by 15th March, which is my fourth installment. So 61,360 में से 46,000 is already deposited. Hence 15,340 I will deposit it in the month of March before 15th March. Clear? So there is one more example, but I want you to note it, and this is your homework to tell me how much is the advance tax liability for each 4 installments. It is a professional income, so assume TDS would be deducted. So I want you to tell me what would be the advance tax installment. Not now. Note the question. This is your homework. Read the provision first, and then you will do it. Okay. Now just one more minute. Now what about presumptive income? Presumptive income to लाया इसलिए था कि compliance is now correct, and you may have learned it in the presumptive income section that if you are under 44AD or 44ADA, then you have to pay advance tax in single installment, that is 100% on 15th of March, by 15th of March. So one single installment, 100% of the tax liability by 15th of March. 100% of the tax liability by 15th of March. Okay. Now remember one thing. 15 June, 15 September, 15 December, 15th March. ये तो clear हो गया, right? And whatever is deposited on these days are advance tax because deposited in the previous year. What about tax deposited between 16th of March to 30th? Between 16th of March to 31st of March. Whether that is also advance tax? The answer is yes. Any tax deposited during the previous year is always advance tax. Tax deposited during the assessment year before any notice is self-assessment tax. Self-assessment. यहाँ पे any tax which is deposited in the advance year even after the installment date would be advance tax only. Would be advance tax only. But it would not be a self-assessment tax. It is categorized as advance tax. Why it is categorized as advance tax? Because it is given in the previous year. And there is one more benefit which you will see in the interest computation, which we'll be covering in the next class. But yes, advance tax may remember anything between 16 to 31st March will also be advanced tax. It would be advanced tax, though it is not in those installment period, but it is considered as advanced tax. Any doubt up till now? ठीक है? Homework noted. Advanced tax compute करना सीखोगे. So one, you have to compute the advanced tax on the amount which I've shown. Also, you have to compute the advanced tax on simple. First, calculate simply on 11 lakh का income on which there is no TDS. ठीक है? Simply first calculate it and then do this complex वाला question. अगर राघवन एडवांटेज तो obviously है. First of all, you do not have to dispose your tax liability in one go, and you have to collect so many of amounts in one go. Number one. Number two, there is the compliance. If you will not follow advanced tax the time limits, there are interest problems which are there. Interest would be applicable to you. Interest as per section 234B and 234C, which we'll see in the next class, because they have to be done in detail. Okay. Secondly, you will be a SSC in default if you not deposit the advance tax. So charge percentage on 112 is same, maximum up to your 15%. सिंपल सा एडवांस टैक्स है. एडवांस टैक्स एक हम सेल्फ एस्टिमेशन पे करते हैं. One advance tax which you'll see in 7.2 is where assessing officer will issue you a notice and say you that deposit the advance tax as per so and so proceeding. That also, if you do it, that is also advance tax. So anything deposited between the 1st April to 31st March of the previous year is advance tax. Sometimes the assessing officer thinks that you think you may not deposit the advance tax, so they issue a notice in advance. Abhi nothing, there is no assessment year came, nothing. They will issue a notice in advance that you have to deposit so and so advance tax, and then you have to deposit so and so advance tax, and they will obviously not say any ad hoc amount. They will do it as per the calculation and as per the data which they have. And generally they do it with assessees who are large, huge taxpayers. Okay, so any doubt up till now? In the next class, we'll continue 234B and C, simple, and then we'll continue with TCS, which is very, very important. Okay. Yes, I think there are no more doubts, so we can. Thank you so much. Have a good day to all of you.